Coffee, a staple for productivity, energy, and social gathering. Whether you're looking for an excuse to soak in the immaculate vibes of cafe culture, find a jolt of energy to get you through the workday, or you just love coffee for its delicious flavor, coffee is one of the world's most popular foreign exports for many reasons. For a small town in rural Minnesota, Northfield is home to a dozen coffee shops that are happy to satisfy its residents' need for a daily cup of joe. But how do these coffee shops get their coffee? After all, Minnesota is hardly the place you'd find coffee trees. In this documentary, I seek to investigate how coffee goes from bean to cup, the impact coffee has on the environment, and what some sustainable practices for coffee look like in Northfield, Minnesota. This is Spilling the Beans by Cassidy Schnell. You've probably heard of coffee beans before, but did you know that they're actually a seed? Coffee beans are found within the cherries of the coffea plant. To turn these seeds into the product we are more accustomed to purchasing, coffee beans are subject to a plethora of processing steps. First, farmers go and harvest the cherries. Then they separate the seeds and set them out to dry. Next, the beans are sifted in a mill, and after that, the beans are ready for export, where they are then shipped off and tasted for quality purposes. Once approved, the beans are roasted to really bring out their flavor profile before they're ready to be ground and used to brew a cup of coffee. Coffee thrives in humid climates with temperatures that range between 73 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So the majority of coffee exports come from a region close to the equator, known as the Coffee Belt. The world's top producers of coffee are Ethiopia, Indonesia, Colombia, Vietnam, and Brazil, which in 2020 alone produced over 7.5 billion pounds of coffee. Producing this much coffee is only made possible by the 28 million farmers involved in the coffee industry and the roughly 27 million acres of land designated for coffee production. Considering the extensive influence of coffee production, unfortunately, environmental devastation and environmental injustice are concomitants of the trade. Attaining this much land to grow coffee requires lots of land clearing and deforestation, which is detrimental to the species living there and severely hinders the health of the ecosystem. In addition, the coffea tree itself has been modified in recent years to increase the number of beans produced per acre of land. All coffee used to be what was known as shade-grown coffee, but in the 1970s, new hybrid breeds of coffee called sun-grown coffee were introduced because they increased the bean yield by threefold. Though these sun-grown coffees are good for supplying the heavy demand of coffee, they are often planted in a monoculture. A monoculture is when only one plant is cultivated in a given area. When a region only has one type of plant, there is not enough biodiversity to help curate soil health. Lack of soil nutrients forces farmers to use a heavy amount of pesticides and fertilizers on their crops, which can contaminate bodies of water, kill off important pollinators, and degrade the overall quality of the plant. Unhealthy soil also leads to soil erosion, which makes the landscape unsuitable for planting crops in future years to come. So what do you do when a commodity that fills so many people with warmth is so taxing on the environment? Well, there are many practices that make the coffee industry better for the planet and the people on it. And many Northfield coffee shops serve coffee that is not only delicious, but is more just and environmentally sound. The 4 types of sustainable coffee that I discovered on my journey through town include shade-grown coffee, organic coffee, fair trade, and a 4th premium category. First, let's talk about shade-grown coffee. As mentioned earlier, all coffee used to be shade-grown, meaning that it was cultivated in a forest and covered by the shade of other trees. This system of agroforestry offers many environmental benefits. For one, trees sequester carbon so they can help fight rising temperatures due to climate change. In addition, Trees promote biodiversity. In 1997, the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center popularized an alternative label for shade-grown coffee, known as bird-friendly coffee. Bird-friendly coffee labels promote the idea that with more trees, the forest will flourish with bird life. Not only was this a win for bird lovers, but for the coffea trees as well. Birds act as natural pest mitigation agents, allowing farmers to minimize their use of chemical insecticide inputs. Lastly, the trees of shade-grown coffee help protect the trees from weather damage and soil erosion. So where can you go about finding a cup of shade-grown coffee in Northfield? Look no further than Goodbye Blue Monday. A coffee shop that opened on Division Street in 1996, Goodbye Blue Monday sells brewed coffee behind the counter and offers whole beans for purchase. With 23 different variations of coffee, it can be hard to know where to even begin in terms of which roast to buy. This is why Goodbye Blue Monday has created clear and simple signage to inform customers about their products. I chatted with the owner, Chloe Keener, to learn more about what this system looks like in place.
Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm the owner of Goodbye Blue Monday. We offer a lot of organic fair trade coffee, primarily pretty much everything except for our flavored coffee and our house espresso. And everything in our bins is marked organic fair trade. In some cases, it's labeled shade grown if it's a shade grown coffee. Our coffee comes straight from a roaster in Minneapolis. So they source all the beans, and we're getting it probably fresher than like your average store is. Because we get coffee delivered every week, and it goes through the bins quite quickly, so we have really fresh beans.
One of the great things about shade-grown coffee is that oftentimes it is inherently organic as well. This leads me to the second type of sustainable coffee, which is certified organic coffee. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, produce can be called organic if it was grown on soil that has had no prohibited substances applied to it in at least 3 years. In other words, organic producers rely on natural processes and resources for fertilizer and pest and weed control. So where can you support organic coffee in Northfield? Head on down to the Raven's Nest. The Raven's Nest Cafe is new to Northfield, opening in October of 2022 as part of Farmstead Bike Shop's new location. Owner Greg Nice walked me through how they navigated opening a new coffee shop and their decision to partner with Wonder State Coffee.
Hi, I'm Greg Nice with my partner Brianna. We own and operate Raven's Nest Cafe here in Northfield, as well as Farmstead Bike Shop and Farmstead Outdoor Adventures. We were actually thinking about a few roasters. We hadn't really narrowed it down, and a couple of factors weighed in pretty heavily and led us to choose Wonder State. The people are just excellent. It's a small, really dedicated group of people, and we learned about how their sourcing works and sort of how their bean selection works and what their fair trade policies and ethic is. And that was so much stronger for them than the other three companies that we'd considered, that it just didn't make sense to work with anyone else.
Wonder State Coffee is also sustainable as they use 100% renewable energy at their roasting facilities.
We didn't know at that point that their roaster was fully solar powered, but when we learned that, we were just like, okay, stop it. You guys are crushing it. From a sort of ethical perspective and from a sustainability perspective. If we're going to buy a whole bunch of coffee, we want to be sure it's coming through a channel that takes that kind of care at every single step. We try to use as much organic produce and like sustainably grown meats and organic berries as we can. We're working with a lot of the local farms so that our supply chain becomes more and more local as we sort of move forward. But I'm always happy to talk about that if people have questions.
A third sustainable option is fair trade coffee. To learn more about fair trade, I talked with Reginaldo Haslet Marroquin, who is an author, entrepreneur, regenerative farmer, and the visionary behind Peace Coffee Company.
I'm Reginaldo Haslet Marroquin, and I'm the CEO for Tree Range Farms, and also have my own Salvatierra Farms, and it's a 64-acre farm right outside of Northfield. And I came from Guatemala in beginning of 1993, technically, and moved to Northfield as the first place where I lived. And it was a dream of my father to have a coffee farm, and so I wanted to start a business here. And the one thing that I felt like I had the most insight and even wisdom and indigenous knowledge about was coffee. Fair trade is not something you define, just like regenerative agriculture. It's not something that we should define. What we have to do, though, is understand what it means. You look at the transactional activity and the chain of custody of those transactions so that they can be verified to be fair. For example, there is a minimum price that is paid to fair trade certified producers. That, last I remember, it was $1.21 plus a 5-cent premium. So a contracting company with the importer in the US, right? That they will never go below $1.26 per pound of green coffee, all right? So it doesn't matter if the price of coffee is 60 cents a pound or 80 cents a pound. These producers in this system, it guarantees that fairness at $1.26. So your coffee, here, your cup of coffee, if the coffee is certified fair trade and is legitimately certified, this coffee is gonna be always at that fixed price to begin with. And then when you take that green coffee and you roast it, you lose 30% of the weight of that coffee. So you already took a 30% hit, but a 30% hit on $1.26 versus a 30% hit on 60 cents on a conventional coffee. So it is because this certified coffee is guaranteeing you that you are not participating in a system of exploitation, of a race to the bottom. You are supporting those communities that now, because they have that guaranteed minimum price, they have predictability of their livelihoods. They have a way to plan for their kids going to school. They can plan for building extra environmental or community infrastructure. They have all of these advantages because you are willing to say, okay, I will pay for the actual fair price of my cup of coffee. That's why it is an absolute win-win-win.
Peace Coffee is sold at both colleges in Northfield. For St. Olaf College, which made the switch to Peace Coffee back in 2003, using organic and fair trade coffee makes a difference. After talking to St. Olaf's food and beverage provider, Bon Appetit, I learned that in the 2021 to 2022 academic year, the local cafe on campus at St. Olaf sold over 59,000 cups of coffee. Imagine the impact that would have on the environment if all of those cups were not fairly sourced organic or fair trade. Now, the thing that makes fair trade and organic coffees a little complicated is that it's important to know the difference between passive and certified organic and fair trade. A lot of coffee farmers are passive organic, meaning that they use organic practices, but they don't necessarily have that guaranteed government certified label to put on their produce. To become certified organic, you have to pay to have someone conduct a review of your farm, and then if you pass the qualifications, you pay to receive the official label. But for those farmers who can't afford to pay for this certification or simply don't use chemicals on their plants for their own ecological or financial reasons, they go unrecognized as certified organic. This becomes a very slippery slope in terms of labeling the coffee. For this reason, coffee shops like the Hideaway and Little Joy work directly with micro-lot, passive organic farms to make sure that they are receiving a fair price.
My name is Joan Spalding, and I am the owner with my husband, Jim, and we have actually had the Hideaway now for 17 years. Truestone is the roaster. They go and they work with small batch farmers. Small batch farmers on the whole can't afford to get like the organic and the fair trade certificate because it's very expensive. So they are, I mean, they actually go to and support families, like they will almost like adopt a family type of thing, and then pay significantly more than fair trade prices. I love the fact that they know, like they've got pictures of the families that they're working with and the whole 9 yards.
So now that you've learned about these 4 types of coffee, how should you even begin to navigate which type of coffee is for you? The best thing to do is take the time to question where your coffee comes from.
It's always important to do your research and not just make an assumption about what you're buying.
Be aware that you have those options, and if it costs you 75 cents more to have your coffee and not to be exploiting anybody, that's a really good way to spend 75 cents.
If you really want to get deeper into this whole fair coffee is to go to the top, which is the Fair Trade Labeling Organization, FLO, and start from there and take a general look at the whole thing before you believe or give any value to somebody just claiming to be doing something.
Next time you're at the store, you can look for the certification labels on the coffee bags themselves. When at a coffee shop, look for sourcing signage or ask the owner about their coffee. Knowing that you're drinking coffee that is fairly traded and raised in a sustainable system is really important. So next time you're thinking about grabbing a cup of coffee, think twice about where you want to go. I guarantee you that the Raven's Nest, Hideaway, Goodbye Blue Monday, Little Joy, or even grabbing a peace coffee from the college cafe will be sure to delight. If you're interested in learning more about sustainable coffee, you can check out Fair Trade America's website, the USDA's page on organic agriculture, and the websites of the local shops in town as well. That's all I have for today. Thank you for watching this documentary, and thank you to everyone who participated in the interviews with me. I also appreciate everyone behind the scenes who helped me make this possible, so thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you enjoyed.